2.5 million Australians live in poverty. A quarter of these, or more than 600,000, are children. Let those numbers sink in. In a country as prosperous as ours, almost 15% of our population face financial stress just trying to survive. The implications of this are more than simply not having enough money. According to researchers, those experiencing poverty are locked out of the choices and opportunities that others enjoy in our society. For these people, poverty means insecurity, powerlessness, exclusion, and susceptibility to violence. And young people and elderly are most at risk. Roughly 15% of each group find themselves living below the poverty line, or less than half of the Australian median weekly income. As part of Anti-Poverty Week, Anglican Media Melbourne visited 2 projects run by the Brotherhood of St Laurence that seek to help those in the community most vulnerable to financial hardship. The first is the Transition to Work program, which helps young people develop their skills and talents so that they can move into employment or further education. While the second, Sample Lodge, is an aged care facility for the socially disadvantaged based in Clifton Hill. And you'll hear from the people who use these services and those that keep them running. As you listen to their stories, I ask you to consider 2 questions. How was it that you avoided deprivation in your lifetime? And what might you now be able to offer to those who stare deprivation in the face?
Olivia is a 17-year-old with a passion for childcare, but after leaving school to pursue this dream, she soon discovered that many doors were closed to her. Unable to find work, she found herself reliant on Centrelink allowances, but like many in her position, knew it was no long-term option.
I know that some young people, youth, don't want to work and they do sit at home and do nothing and just get payments, but there are so many people like myself who do want to work and they just try to look for opportunities to get to work.
Around the time of the global financial crisis, there was a significant spike in the youth unemployment rate, which is not unusual in a time of economic downturn. But what was unusual was it continued to rise and rise and rise each year, which is highly unusual. It hasn't happened before. And at around 2012, it got to a point where, it was a worry. We were very concerned about it. So the Transition to Work program is for young people between 15 and 21 who aren't currently engaged in education or employment, but who are, really motivated to achieve something in their lives. They might not know what that is at this point in time, but it's, it provides an opportunity to give them line of sight to a job, to start unpicking their aspirations, and very importantly, to get a really great sense of what their own talents are and where they lie and where those fit in the world of work.
Olivia has been participating in the Transition to Work program for 4 months now and says that it's already helped her develop enthusiasm and confidence for her future.
It's definitely useful, they're very helpful, and knowing that you do have that support behind you and you have that help kind of motivates you to want to work. And knowing that, you are having people helping find you a job is definitely a positive thing. That helps a lot. It brings a lot of opportunities, the skills that I do get from here. The support kind of makes you feel like you will go somewhere no matter what. And knowing you have that support behind you kind of pushes you to really get to where you want to go.
I think when young people have been unemployed for a period of time, hope can be the first thing to go. And I think when you're looking in the face of headlines such as those that have been appearing recently, calling young people, the new dole bludgers, and taking figures that are genuinely very concerning, like the fact that there's 550,000 young people who aren't currently engaged in education, employment or training, but to be throwing those figures around like that's a deliberate ploy. I have met literally hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of young people in the last couple of years who are currently unemployed. And while I have no doubt this may be the case for some, not one of those young people that I've met actually genuinely want to be in that situation at the moment, especially when you drill down into what that means. Once you give young people the opportunity to hope and the opportunity to have line of sight to a real opportunity, I find that as anyone would, they want to step up and make that happen for themselves.
Across town and on the other end of the demographic spectrum, the Brotherhood of St Laurence supports the disadvantaged elderly through Sandbell Lodge.
We provide supported accommodation from people who have experienced homelessness or at risk of homelessness, mental health issues, alcohol abuse, and we support them in a variety of ways. Primarily and fundamentally, I suppose, is to give them a reason to value their life.
Sandbell Lodge is one of 2 assisted aged care facilities run by the Brotherhood of St Laurence in Melbourne, but there's only so many beds that they can offer. Paul says that the issue of extreme poverty for the elderly continues to grow, and with it, the risk of homelessness.
You can see that even in the last 12 months, where the issue of homelessness and people at risk of homelessness it's been in the papers, it's been in the press, what are we going to do about it? So there's an increasing demand for people in supported accommodation.
One of those people is Barry, who spent much of his life dealing with alcohol addiction, family breakdowns and homelessness. After coming to Sandbell Lodge 4 years ago, he's beginning to find a meaning and contentedness in his later years that had eluded him in his youth. He's also blunt about where he'd think he'd be without the support he gets here.
I'd be dead. I'd definitely kill myself or something. Something would happen. Just give me an incentive to live and to carry on. I've done a lot of trips to Sydney with Paul, and I do soup band on a Sunday night, which I give back to society that way. And that's really good. Since I've been here, it's been fantastic.
Every second or third Sunday night, I take a group of the residents out to the Margaret Oates soup van over in Smith Street, and he's always the first one to put his hand up to say, you know, we're going out to the food van, because he just wants to give back.
The place here is quite good. There are a lot of people that come in here and they only stay for 2 or 3 weeks, but other people stay longer. But it's quite good here. You couldn't, I call it the palace, because it is a palace.
While we may debate the inevitability of poverty, we can be certain that living in disadvantage is neither inevitable nor unassailable. But much more work needs to be done. Anglicare has called for an independent tribunal to consider the cost of living for people on pensions and allowances. They want to see New Start and similar allowances increased immediately to raise their recipients above the poverty line. Anglicare has also called for government and community planning to take into account the needs of people on low incomes, as well as for reforms to negative gearing, superannuation and the fringe benefits tax. As I said before this year's federal election, we need a plan that puts people and their flourishing first, and not just in economic terms. Those people who are going hungry, who can't afford basic necessities, who can't guarantee a long-term home for themselves or their families, these people cannot wait for a restructure of the economy. Their needs are urgent now.